and then also we had a trailer for the Renfield movie, which is now out on streaming. I haven't seen that yet, but it looked pretty entertaining, especially if you like Nick Cage. And then and then the movie about the dog who wants to bite his owner's dick off. I don't know if you saw that one or not. It's the dog is voiced by Will Ferrell, and it's like a R-rated Homeward Bound.
Oh, yeah.
So looks pretty entertaining. But yeah,
Strays, is that what it's called?
Strays. That's exactly what it's called. Yep. Yeah.
I remember that trailer. Yeah. Okay.
So we've got quite a cast in this movie too. We'll talk about those as we get to them. But so let's say where do I want to start? I think where I want to start here is let's talk about Andrew C. Thornton II, right? So that's his name, Andrew C. Thornton II. That's the real life Drew Thompson, along with John Hinckley Jr. highlighting the importance of unique naming. You don't want to pass that name down to somebody who's going to become infamous. By the way, my favorite tweet of all time, or Instagram comment of all time right now is he posted something to the effect, or John Hinckley Jr. posted something to the effect of, just trying to find a venue that won't cave when there's backlash. And the comedian who responded says, try Ford's Theater.
Oh, that's great.
It's absolutely perfect. It was there in the marble the whole time, and he carved it right out of the marble. It's wonderful. But so Andrew C. Thornton II, the Cocaine Bear is based on what happened with him in 1985. But let's talk about what happened to him before that. He was in the Army, joined the police department in Lexington, Kentucky in 1968. He obtained a degree in law enforcement in 1971. Sometime in there between 68 and 71, he ended up joining the narco squad of the Lexington PD. While he's a cop, he's taking night classes to become a lawyer. Eventually he gets his law degree. He resigns as a cop in 77, starts practicing law in Lexington. At some point between 1971 and 1976, Andrew Thornton decided to start smuggling drugs. He became the head of a criminal organization in Kentucky called The Company that operated a drug smuggling ring in conjunction with the Colombians. And a little bit about the night of Cocaine Bear. So, and of course, the Drew Thompson story from Justified. You're going to be interested to see how many similarities they have here. So this is from an article in Time Magazine. These facts are from an article in Time Magazine. The article's dated October 21st, 1985. So, he dies, Andrew C. Thornton dies in somebody's backyard, after jumping out of his Cessna, over Knoxville, with 35 kilos of cocaine, a bulletproof vest, 6 1-ounce gold bars, and 2 pistols strapped to his body. So he jumps out with basically 70 pounds of cocaine and some gold and some cash, a little bit of cash, bulletproof vest, and 2 pistols. On his way down, he gets tangled up in his reserve chute, and he plummets to his death, lands in somebody's backyard. His plane crashes about 70 miles away. And this was the most interesting thing that I got out of this article. So apparently this was their tactic by smugglers. They'd load up the plane, they'd bail out along the way, jump out with the drugs strapped to their body, and then you let the plane crash. And the justification was, you're smuggling $30-50 million in cocaine. Who cares if you lose a $300,000 or $500,000 plane? It's no big deal. Just let it crash.
Yeah. Well, they would. That's why they would do it in the or try to get fly over the forest, right? Because they're isolated. Was that what it was?
That's exactly right. So there's an interview with this guy who was running the U.S. Customs Air Branch in the area at the time. They had flown that year 200 interdiction missions for aircraft, and they said that a good portion of those were unmanned aircraft that the pilots had already jumped out of that crashed either into the forest or into the Gulf of Mexico or somewhere else. And that they've been really, really lucky to not have a plane crash in a residential area to that point. So that's something else. Just the callous disregard for human life exhibited by that, you know. Like we're just gonna jump out of this missile at 5,000 feet or whatever.
Yeah. Well, did you see that story about the guy who crashed his plane on purpose and he just did it for the views, like the video?
He did it for the likes.
For the likes. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
That guy's gonna go to jail.
Yeah. It's crazy what people are doing nowadays. Yep. I don't know. Maybe it was better when people were doing it for the drugs.
For the drugs and the cash. Yeah, they say that he had it was $15 million in cocaine that he had strapped to him. So, and the gold, those 6 1-ounce gold bars were worth about $300 an ounce at the time. Now worth about $2,000 an ounce.
Yeah.
But so I then did a little bit more digging, and I found that this guy David Lee Williams, who was one of his associates, one of Thornton's associates, he died a few weeks later with 15 other skydivers in his plane when his plane crashed because the engines were spiked with sugar. And the operating theory is that the Colombians were getting revenge because Thornton and Williams had been skimming from them. And so the other 15 skydivers who were just there for a skydiving trip died as collateral damage. So again, just a callous disregard for human life exhibited by these cartel people.
Oh, jeez. Well, that's about right. If you watch that movie Narcos, or not Narcos, or the series Narcos, they're just like murdering people left and right.
Just no mercy, no compassion, no nothing.
Yeah.
Sociopaths. But yeah, and then the real cocaine bear. So the real cocaine bear died in Georgia, and it died because he had made a prior drop that night. So on his way, he drops off, I don't know, some portion of his cargo, 200 pounds, they say. So we don't know how much he actually had or whether that was the bulk of it or not. But he drops that off. It gets stuck in a tree. It's eventually reclaimed, but the bear OD'd on it first. And they found the bear about 3 months later, actually. So I'm guessing that they didn't ever find all the cocaine.
It's like stuck in the like in the forest, spread out over.
there's some bag wrapped. You're gonna trip over under 3 feet of leaves or whatever one day. There's treasure hunters out there scouring the Chattahoochee forest looking for it.
Seriously, I mean, you could probably just find, because they package the packages are really supposed to be well impervious to everything.
Because if you drop them in the ocean, they want them to float.
Yeah,
and not get diluted. So
yeah. Oh, yep.
Oh man. All right. So that's the real story. Now let's talk about the movie. So we've got Kerry Russell's fictional husband from The Americans, throwing and real life lover, by the way, playing Drew Thornton, and he's throwing out bags of coke to music from Wet Hot American Summer, which is a show and a movie that starred Elizabeth Banks, who is the director of this film. So the snake is eating its entire tail. Little reference inside a reference there. But yeah. And so he's throwing the cocaine out, and on his way out the plane door, he hits his head and knocks himself out and plummets to his death.
So much for that emergency chute, as they mentioned. Yeah, the emergency chute deployed, I guess.
Exactly.
But yeah.
Well, that's what in the real story they say is his reserve chute is what got him. It got tangled up. So. Oh yeah. Okay. I don't know if his main chute failed or what happened, but yeah, and then there's we have this thing. They have these tourists that get butchered. Well, one of the tourists gets butchered. A pregnant tourist, by the way.
Yeah, that's right.
I do love how they threw that in just before they butcher her. Pregnant tourist gets butchered, and the guy who is her boyfriend or husband or whatever is Tormund Giantsbane from Game of Thrones. This giant like Norwegian dude who plays this like big, I don't know. I don't even know. Like, how should I describe him? He's very touchy feely, very tender, soft kind of.
Like a German tourist? Is that what he was?
I mean, he was like German or Dutch or something, or Northern Europe somewhere. I don't know. Maybe one of the Nordic countries. I'm not sure. But yeah, the kind of the guy who would walk around barefoot and eat granola and that sort of character. But but we get the opening credits and it's this like literally an 80s anti-drug movie.
I think it was actually like they're using the actual footage from back then, like this is your brain on drugs.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The brain on drugs thing was definitely was absolutely an ad I remember distinctly. As someone who was growing up, very impressionable youth at the time. Fried egg in the pan. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions? I have a ton of questions. Every time I saw that commercial, I'm like, yeah, I have a ton of questions. What the hell are you talking about? What is this even supposed to mean?
That was like the thing with Nancy Reagan back then, right? She was like the Miss Say No to Drugs. She wasn't she?
There's this song that still runs around in my head from when I was in like first or second grade, and we had to do Dare, and there was like a Say No to Drugs song that we had to learn. I'm telling you, man, it was pervasive in the schools. It was indoctrination, and I mean, look, don't do drugs indoctrination, so it wasn't terrible indoctrination, but there was an awful lot of sensationalism associated with it. If you do it one time, it's going to kill you. Oh, guess I won't do it then.
God, they had this so this weekend there was this Electric Daisy Chain Carnival.
I think it's just Electric Daisy Carnival. I don't think it's Daisy
Daisy Chain. Oh, Electric Daisy. What did I say? Oh, Electric Daisy Chain Carnival?
Yes, that's
Electric Daisy Car. So that was this weekend. Yeah. And oh man, you want to see like a drug crisis. Oh, yeah. Watch all these kids out like on a Monday morning after 3 days on a bender, and they're like lying out, and like it's 9 o'clock in the morning out here, and you can see them like laying underneath shade in the at some of these casinos because the shuttle dropped them off, and they're just like.
They got nowhere else to go, man. And they're just like, I've got to kill 3 hours until I can go to the airport. Yeah.
So they're just lying underneath the shade, just like, I don't know, man. That's, and if you know anything about that whole scene, it's like nothing but the drugs.
Right? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Stimulants, psychedelics. I mean, all kinds, everything, right? Everybody's having a good time, but at the same time, man, the hangover's got to be something. It's
I was 3 days.
Well, I was there last week, and as I was leaving town, they were coming into town, and so it was like, I definitely see what's going on here. Like Wednesday night, I started to really notice the crowd change.
So surprising, so it's a younger demographic, right? Yeah. Like, 20s to 30s or whatever. But I was just amazed. Like I was looking at some of the outfits that some of these girls were wearing, and it's like, I didn't know it was possible to have even more nudity
wearing clothes
without wearing clothes. Yeah.
How could you be more naked? You could take that off and not be more naked. Yeah, no, it's they actually, I think I'm trying to remember where it was. It might have been the New Yorker or New York Times Magazine, or someone had an article either today or yesterday about that exact thing, and about how Gen Z is they don't wear clothes, and like they're very happy about it. Like transparent clothing and tiny clothing, like minimal clothing. It's their thing. They love it.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to sit in a place some girl sat that was just wearing a thong. No, thank you.
There's a reason that at the nudist resorts they don't call them colonies anymore, I don't think. But at the nudist resorts, everybody's got to take a towel with them everywhere they go.
Yeah.
There's a reason. So you have something to sit on, so you're not polluting the chair with your ass matter.